You have one franchised location that's currently open in Rock Hill, North Carolina, but you've got 5 more that are going to be opening up this year. We're off to the races now, my friend.
Yeah, well, I've always, like you were saying before we jumped on this, slow and steady wins the race, and especially in franchising, I've everybody I've spoke to is like your first franchisees are the most important. Start slow, understand the whole entire process, and it's almost like you kind of crawl and then go straight into running. You kind of skip walking. So yeah, we're off to the races. We have 2 locations in Nashville, Tennessee that most likely will open up by the end of this year. One in Dallas, Texas that'll open around June or July. One in Fort Worth, Texas, that's going to open around June or July, and then one in Matthews, North Carolina, that will open right around June or July. So they're all kind of falling around the same time frame.
That's awesome. It's kind of contradictory to us being entrepreneurs that we want to grow fast. We want to, blow this thing up, but we know that slow and steady ultimately win the race because we can't open more locations than we can support. And we always think we can support more. But the truth is, when we get into franchising, there are systems and processes, right, that we didn't even know we needed. You don't even know what you don't know, because I could at least speak from my experience. In some cases, I went, damn, I really didn't think a franchisee would do that or think of that, but okay, I guess we need to plan for that. And there was a lot of that. And my FDD is riddled with the this or that because of what somebody wanted to do or didn't want to do or any of those things and anything in between. But the franchise journey is, I think it really has to be at the rate that you feel comfortable in, that you can adequately support. And we're seeing all these brands, though, Rich, that are, they're so excited about they're selling, 30, 40, 50 locations. And then you ask them how many open. They say they have 3 or 4 open. I'm thinking they have no idea what they're about to encounter. There's so much. So I'm proud of you. I'm happy for you that you have 5 that are opening this year. I think that's great.
It's definitely hard to do, as like you said, as a founder and a visionary. You want to move fast. But yes, to your point, I hired a fractional CMO a little over a year ago, and we're about 95% done with our marketing guide, and that marketing guide is about 80 pages long, right? So to take everything that we did naturally and put it into a book and a guide, so the franchisees understand what the value is and what why they signed up with us,
Right.
it's unreal, because we just do it naturally. We just rock and roll, and we go and move and we make things happen. But
Yeah.
it's crazy thing for franchising.
It is, you know what? When I thought that I've seen every franchise concept, and there's so many, there are a dime a dozen of concepts that keep, copycats. Yours is different.
Yeah. Again, from day one, I always said we don't have to be better. We just have to be different, right? People, especially our demographic, they want it different. They want something that's an experience, something that everybody else wants to go do, and their friends can hang out and be more Instagrammable or social media driven.
Right.
So we are probably the only one in our space that is doing in the bar restaurant space that's doing what we're doing.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the most common questions I get from founders that are starting out is, where do I find my first franchisees? So since you've got one that's open, but 5 more that are going to be open this year, where did you find your first 5 or 6?
Yeah, the first one locally, again, he's just 30 minutes away in Rock Hill, South Carolina. He was a customer. He saw our technology at one of our locations and reached out to our tech company and said, hey, I want to open one of these, but do you have any of your operators that I can speak with? And usually any self-serve, they're usually referring me to talk to potential sales. I don't know how many sales I've made for those guys, but he reached out. I spoke to him. I said, hey, I'm actually in the process of finalizing my FDD here in a few months. If you want to franchise, we can support you in that. Because he was a retired school teacher, him and his wife, and some of his partners are school teachers as well. And he called me, I think, the next day, and he's like, we're on board. So that one kind of came easier than I would say most franchisors' first one.
Sure.
The other locations, every one of them came from our organic advertising, whether it was on Facebook, social media, or they've seen it in one of our tap rooms.
So I mean that is sort of typical. The first one is generally a customer or referral, and it starts to grow from there.
Yeah, the snowball effect.
Yeah, sure is. Can you elaborate a little bit on the training and support for franchisees? And are they expected to be? You expect them to be owner operated or manager operated locations?
Yeah. We obviously I try and stay away from the semi absentee just because it has a bad taste, I feel like, for some people. But yeah, we do investor manager is what we like to call it. You can own and operate if you wish, but I've structured this business to be very owner manager or investor manager structure, and the ability to do that and open up multiple locations and have the freedom is what the goal is.
Okay, so that brings me to the next thing then. Maybe not so obvious question though. Your thoughts on selling multiple units to an investor early on? Do you have something set up in your like in your FDD where they can buy a package of Hoppin?
Yeah, our franchisee in Nashville has 3 units. He's multi-unit. Our franchisee in Dallas, Texas has 3 units. And yeah, it's structured, both of them are structured basically exactly the same. They have to open up and sign leases at certain times. So that portion of it is great. The group in Dallas has an operating manager. So one of the partners is going to be managing, which is great because we got to vet him. Our group in Nashville will probably be very hand-holding in the process of who he's going to hire for his manager or regional manager, because there's a huge culture fit with our brand.
Okay. With that said, is the investor responsible also for coming to training, or can they just send their managers there?
Depends on the investor, right? I mean, I've spoke to a few investors who own 20, 30 McDonald's. Yeah, more than likely, they're going to send their team that they already have, right? And we feel comfortable with that. Now,
Sure.
the current multi-unit franchisees we have in Dallas and Fort Worth, they don't have that portfolio or the team underneath them already. So we'll require the investors to all be here.
Good for you. Technology obviously plays a role in your company in a large part. So you're almost as much of a technology company as you are a bar, right?
Yeah.
So walk me through a little bit more about the technology, not just obviously we talked about the draft experience, but how technology plays a role in supporting the franchisees' efforts.
Yeah, just the ability to have the freedom of and the mindset going to bed and knowing exactly every tenth of an ounce that's poured and who poured it, right? So the traditional bar owner has to worry about people giving drinks away and stealing. It's easy for us to catch on our self-serve tap. And I have, 3 simple rules. Don't steal, don't give drinks away, don't drink on the job, and have a good attitude, right? Have fun. That's it. Those are the only 3 things you can get fired from in my rule book. So the technology piece allows our franchisees to be anywhere in the world and understand, what's going on in their tap room. And then it's also just very in depth. For our managers, they can see every tenth of an ounce that's poured, but they can also see, all right, when's this keg going to kick in the back office or right on the screen? It shows them how many ounces or how much is left in that keg, so they can kind of prepare to change the next keg. The reporting on it is great. Our management team also, who our purchasing manager does a great job of providing reports and saying, here's what's selling well in our market, here's what's selling well in other markets once we get those open, and providing those. And the franchisee has full rights to order what they want, put on their wall what they want. We will just provide them what we think is selling best.
Okay. And what about staffing? If I was going to open a Hoppin, what does my staff look like? How many members do I need?
Yeah, this is a big one right now, especially in the world of having employees. We have a maximum of 12-ish employees, usually 8 to 12 employees total, depending on the market and how busy you are. So if you're just on the 12 employees, 3 of them are full-time, the rest are part-time at $3 an hour, depending on state laws. Some laws are a little bit different. So very minimal staff, very minimal full-time staff. And one of the ways we get around that is we don't have a full kitchen. We partner with local food operators, well, whether it's a food truck, a neighboring restaurant, or we build out a kitchen inside of our space and we sublease it to a food operator in the market.
Okay, so is there a revenue share plan for the franchisees with the food operators?
Yeah, we always try to negotiate 10%. Usually it falls around 5% of the gross revenue. Since anything that's going through our tap room is because we've created the tap room.
Right.
And then if it is like more of a food stall inside the space, we'll charge them percent of their revenue plus the rent.
And also, if I was a franchise owner, do you help me gain clients? Where are we marketing other than obviously there's a storefront?
Yeah. So it's always a little bit different than your typical franchise, right? Startup. Everybody wants that new, cool, shiny bar to go to. All the influencers, all your local media, everybody jumps on it. So It's very easy for us to jump off in the beginning and be very successful. What we've learned over our last almost 7 years is how do we capture their contacts and their data and then be able to remarket them via text and email. So we start that process 90 days out. 90 days out, we start to run ads and we start to collect data. And that's phone numbers, emails, and sometimes the ability to direct message them on Facebook and Instagram.
You are a technology company hidden among beer.
Yeah, yeah. Beer is just the product, right? Beer is the
That's
drink.
it. Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.